Right now, something is happening inside your brain. As you watch this video, billions of neurons are firing, new connections are forming, and your brain is changing. Not tomorrow, not by the end of the video, right now. The strange part is, it isn't changing because of the information. It's changing because of how you're seeing it. Imagine hearing someone explain a difficult idea using only words. Now imagine watching the exact same idea come alive through simple moving drawings. One version feels like work. The other feels almost effortless. Why? Why does your brain understand a few moving sketches faster than pages of text? Why do animated stories stay in your memory for years, while facts you read yesterday quietly disappear? Scientists have spent decades trying to answer these questions, and what they discovered reveals something surprising. Animation doesn't just entertain your brain, it speaks a language your brain learned long before humans ever invented books, or even writing itself. And once you understand that language, you'll never watch animation the same way again. For thousands of years, humans have told stories. Long before books, long before movies, even before written language, people gathered around fires and imagined impossible things. Monsters, heroes, living stars. Our brains evolved to understand stories, but they never evolved for animation. After all, animation has existed for barely 100 years. From an evolutionary perspective, that's nothing. So this raises an interesting question. If our brains were never designed for animation, why does animation affect us so deeply? And the answer begins with something your brain has been doing since the day you were born. Not watching cartoons, not recognizing characters, but searching for life. The moment you opened your eyes as a baby, your brain started looking for faces, for movement, for emotion, for intention, because throughout human history, recognizing another living creature often meant the difference between survival and death. Your brain became incredibly good at finding life, even when there wasn't any. And this is where things start becoming strange. Imagine someone draws two small circles, a curved line beneath them, and suddenly you see a face, not because it actually is one, but because your brain refuses to believe it's just a few lines. Scientists call this pattern recognition. Your brain is constantly searching for familiar shapes, especially faces. In fact, it searches so aggressively that people often see faces where none exist. In clouds, on the moon, in pieces of toast, even in the front of a car. The strange thing is, animation quietly takes advantage of this ancient ability. A few circles become eyes, a simple line becomes a smile. Two dots suddenly look happy, or sad, or frightened. Nothing about the drawing has life, yet your brain treats it as if it does. But recognizing a face is only the beginning. The real surprise happens when that face starts to move. Picture a tiny stick figure standing completely still. You understand almost nothing about it. Now imagine it slowly lowering its head. Without anyone saying a single word, you immediately assume it's disappointed. Raise its arms into the air, and suddenly it looks excited. Let its shoulders slump forward. Now it seems exhausted. The animation never told you any of this. Your own brain did. Every movement becomes a sentence your mind automatically translates, and that's something humans have been doing for hundreds of thousands of years. Long before language, long before writing, our ancestors survived by reading movement. A slight change in posture could mean fear. A sudden turn of the head could signal danger. A running animal could mean food. Movement carried information long before words ever did. The amazing part is, that ancient survival system still exists inside your brain today. Animation simply speaks its language. But here's what most people don't realize. Your brain doesn't just watch movement, it predicts it. Imagine throwing a ball into the air. Even before it begins to fall, your brain has already calculated where it expects the ball to land. You don't consciously think about it. It simply happens. Your brain is constantly trying to stay one step ahead of the world. Every second, it makes millions of tiny predictions. What someone will say next, where a bird will fly, how a car will turn, even which word you're about to read next. Animation turns this natural prediction machine into a game. Every movement asks a silent question. Where is this character going? Will they fall? Will they smile? Will they escape? Your brain begins answering these questions before the animation does. And every time your prediction is correct, your brain feels rewarded. Every time you're wrong, your attention becomes even stronger. Without realizing it, you're no longer simply watching, you're participating. This is one reason animation can feel strangely impossible to ignore. But another mystery still remains. If movement is so powerful, why are simple cartoons often easier to understand than realistic movies? At first, that makes no sense. Surely more detail should help us learn better. More colors, more textures, more realism, more information. information. But the brain doesn't always want more information. Sometimes it wants less, because every extra detail demands attention. The pattern on a shirt, the wrinkles on a face, the reflection in a window. The brain has to process all of it. Simple animation removes almost everything, leaving behind only what truly matters: the expression, the movement, the idea. Think about a classroom. A teacher spends 10 minutes explaining gravity. Some students understand, others don't. Now imagine the same explanation. A simple stick figure jumps, falls, bounces, and repeats the motion. Suddenly, gravity no longer feels like an abstract idea. It becomes something your brain can see happening. That's because your brain evolved to understand actions long before it evolved to understand explanations. And perhaps that's the greatest secret of animation. It doesn't force your brain to imagine. It gives your imagination something to build upon. The drawing is simple, but the experience inside your mind is anything but simple. But if animation makes learning so much easier, why doesn't every animation leave a lasting impression? After all, we've all watched animated videos that disappeared from our memory almost immediately, yet somehow a few stay with us for years. The difference isn't the animation itself, it's the emotion attached to it. Imagine trying to remember a random number. You might forget it within seconds. Now imagine the day you first rode a bicycle, or the moment you graduated, or the first time you watched your favorite animated movie. You probably remember far more than just the event: the sounds, the colors, the feeling, the people around you. Your brain wasn't simply storing information, it was storing an experience. Scientists have discovered that emotion acts like a highlighter for memory. When something makes you laugh, surprises you, scares you, or fills you with wonder, your brain quietly marks that moment as important. Animation understands this remarkably well. A bouncing lamp can make you feel hope. A silent robot can make you feel lonely. A tiny fish searching for its family can make millions of people cry. None of these characters are real, yet the emotions they create absolutely are. And this leads to another fascinating question. How can we feel empathy for something that never existed? The answer may lie inside a remarkable group of brain cells known as mirror neurons. Imagine watching someone accidentally hit their hand against a table. Many people instinctively pull their own hand back. Some even wince in pain. Nothing happened to them, yet their brain briefly behaved as though it had. Your brain constantly simulates the experiences of others. It's one of the reasons humans cooperate so well. We don't just observe, we imagine ourselves in someone else's place. Animation activates that same system. When a stick figure struggles to climb a mountain, your brain quietly rehearses the effort. When an animated child smiles, your brain reflects part of that happiness. The drawing may be imaginary, but your emotional response is completely real. And perhaps that's why animation can explain ideas that words alone sometimes cannot. It doesn't simply tell you what something feels like. It allows your brain to experience a small version of that feeling itself. But there's another twist to this story. Not all moving images affect your brain in the same way. Think about scrolling through short videos on your phone. One clip, then another, each one fighting for your attention. Your brain is constantly switching, constantly resetting, constantly searching for the next burst of novelty. Animation designed for learning works very differently. Instead of overwhelming your attention, it guides it. Instead of distracting your brain, it organizes it. Every movement has a purpose. Every transition answers one question while creating another. Every scene builds naturally on the last. That's why the best educational animations don't feel like lessons. They feel like discoveries. The information doesn't arrive all at once. It unfolds, one idea leading naturally into the next, almost like solving a mystery. And maybe that's exactly what your brain enjoys most. Not receiving answers, but uncovering them. Think back to the beginning of this video. We asked a simple question. How does animation change your brain? At first, it sounded like a question about cartoons, but the deeper we looked, the more surprising the answer became. Animation captures attention because your ancestors survived by noticing movement. It simplifies complexity because your brain prefers meaningful patterns over unnecessary detail. It strengthens memory because emotion leaves deeper traces than information alone. And it creates empathy because your brain instinctively rehearses the experiences of others. In other words, animation doesn't give your brain a new ability. It speaks a language your brain has understood for hundreds of thousands of years. Perhaps that's why why the simplest animations often feel the most powerful, because they leave room for the most important part of the story, your own imagination. Every frame becomes a conversation, not between the screen and your eyes, but between the screen and your mind. And maybe that's the real magic of animation. It's never just about what appears on the screen. It's about what quietly comes alive inside your brain. The next time you watch a simple stick figure walk across a blank white background, remember, you aren't just watching lines move. You're watching millions of years of human evolution respond to one of the oldest languages the brain has ever known, the language of movement, the language of stories, the language that quietly changes the way we think, and perhaps, the way we remember the world itself. If you enjoyed this journey, subscribe to Sketch Signal, because sometimes the most ordinary things we see every day